Okay, I'm going to try to read a newspaper to you all today, and so if this video disappears, you know that YouTube has banned my channel yet again. This article happens to be about COVID vaccine damage consultants being paid more than COVID vaccine victims, okay? And the company is US based, it's not a UK company, it's US based Crawford and Company. They have paid out 24,360,000 to claimants, yeah, these are the COVID vaccine victims. The COVID vaccine victims have received 24 million, but the company received 27 million for its services, okay? So consultants assessing COVID vaccine damage claims on behalf of the National Health Service have been paid millions more than the victims. It has emerged. Notice the comma there, and it's because we start with the object and then we get the subject and the verb. You often see this comma here, especially in newspaper articles, for when you front a very long object. Okay, Freedom of Information requests made by the Telegraph show that US-based Crawford and Company has carried out nearly 13,000 medical assessments, but dismissed more than 98% of cases. So more than 98% of victims, of people who claim that they are victims of the COVID vaccine, more than 98% have been denied any compensation whatsoever. Okay, only less than 2% got any compensation. Just 203 claimants out of, I believe it's 16,000 claims. Just 203 claimants have been notified they are entitled to a one-off payment. That means a payment you get only once, a one-off payment of £120,000 through the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme, amounting to £24 million. Yet Crawford and Company has received £27 million for its services. So here you can see exactly who is more important. It is the consultants that judge whether you are disabled enough. They get more money than the victims who are disabled. The Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme is run by the National Health Service Business Services Authority, but it has been criticised for a lack of transparency regarding how claims are assessed. So nobody seems to know the criteria for how you are awarded with some kind of compensation for the damage that you received from taking a certain medicine, which I'm not even allowed to mention 5 years later. So Professor Richard Goldberg, Chairman in Law at Durham University, with a special interest in vaccine liability and compensation, said, "The idea that this would be farmed out to a private company to make a determination is very odd. It's taxpayers' money, and money is tight at the moment." Okay, if money is tight, you don't have much of it. It means money is short, money is tight. And when you farm out work to another company, it means that you give this work, you outsource this work to a company very often that's based abroad, but you give the work to another company. And of course here it's a private company, it's not a state company that is deciding who deserves compensation from this particular medicine, which I'm still not allowed to mention. So the lack of transparency is not helpful, and there is a terrible sense of secrecy. Yeah, I've noticed that. There's a terrible sense of secrecy about all this. One gets the sense that their main objective is for these cases not to succeed. Yeah, in other words, for nobody to be awarded any money whatsoever. There are no stats available, so we don't know the details about how these claims are being decided, or whether previous judgments are being taken into account. I suppose they're the judgments of the doctors who said that there probably was some kind of link between their death or their injury and the magic medicine that I'm still not allowed to mention. There must be some connection between the two. They just trot out, and that just means they just say, but when you trot something out, it's some kind of thing which you always say. Okay, so they just trot out the same old line that they will examine the medical and epidemiological research and current medical consensus. He added, "What we want is people who are entitled to compensation to get it." And I'm not saying everyone deserves compensation. Well, personally, I think everyone who was injured by the magic medicine, which they didn't want to take, I think they do deserve compensation. But the vast majority of cases are knocked out on causation grounds. And I believe that there is a need for rigorous criteria to determine causation, as well as a system that is fair and accessible. Well, unfortunately, it's always impossible to determine causation 100% because science doesn't work like that. There's no such thing as 100% proof in science. It's just not possible. It's not how science works, and anyone who thinks it is how science works simply misunderstands cause and effect and the scientific method. Unfair claim denials. Crawford and Company, which is based in Atlanta, Georgia, that's in the United States, is one of the world's largest claims management and loss adjustment companies, with offices in 70 countries. However, it has faced public criticism. Reviews on sites such as Trustpilot and Glassdoor accuse the company of unfair claim denials, dismissal of medical evidence, and a lack of transparency. The company has a 1.4-star ranking on Trustpilot. They go up to 5 stars. So they've got a 1.4 star on Trustpilot. That's how much the public trusts this company. The Heart Health Advisory and Recovery Team group, which was set up by medical professionals and scientists during the pandemic, has warned that Crawford and Company has a troubling reputation with numerous reports of mismanagement and claims denials across various sectors. Since the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme was founded in 1979, it has had about 16,000 applications, but the COVID jab has made up the vast majority of the claims. That's interesting, isn't it? Seeing as the thing has been around since 1979, but by far, I think it's 14,000 out of 16,000, roughly, they are from COVID jab claims. Payments have been awarded for conditions related to the COVID jab, including stroke, heart attack, dangerous blood clots, inflammation of the spinal cord, excessive swelling of the vaccinated limb, and facial paralysis. Around 97% of claims awarded relates to the AstraZeneca jab, with a handful of payments made for the damage from Pfizer or Moderna. However, and by the way, that was the UK jab, and these are the US jabs as far as I remember. Interesting that an American company has decided in that way. So, however, thousands of people have been turned down by medical assessors. If you're turned down, you are refused, denied something. So thousands of people have been turned down by medical assessors who say there is no concrete proof that the vaccine caused harm. And there never will be concrete proof of anything in science. You can only get 99.9% sure on anything. So while hundreds of others have been refused payment because they are not disabled enough. Remember those words next time you are offered an experimental medicine. Applicants must prove not only that the jab definitely caused their condition, but also that it made them at least 60% disabled, whatever that means. Critics say that the cut-off is arbitrary and is impossible to determine. So arbitrary here means that they chose 60% at random. It didn't need to be 60, it could have been 70, could have been 80. The NHS BSA said that when the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme was originally set up, the threshold, the limit, was 80%. It was higher, but it was revised down to 60% in June 2002. We're not sure why. Yeah, it said it could not provide information about the reason for reducing it from 80 to 60% disabled. The Telegraph contacted Crawford and Company, but were told to put questions to the NHS BSA, which had not responded at the time of going to press.